Sure, yeah, we have Dawn with Patrick and Sarah with Patrick as well. They're the planning consulting firm that's working with the borough for our active transportation plan. We received 2 grants, one from the state and one from the county, in order to help conduct a plan to see how to make Churchill Borough a more safe community for transportation via walking, biking, various means of transportation. So with this plan, Patrick is working with the steering committee in order to see these various means that we can do. So I'll let Dawn take the lead.
Great, thank you. So yes, we're here to talk about active transportation planning tonight. I hope to speak very little, but we want to hear from you. Tonight is a listening session to find out how we can make Churchill Borough better, make improvements so that it's easier to travel by foot, by bicycle, by car, with strollers, with wheelchairs, with wagons, e-bikes, all modes of what we call active transportation. And we really focus on, everybody is a pedestrian, no matter what trip they're taking. You walk to your car, you get into your car. You park in a parking lot, you get out of your car, you go into the store, you go to the doctor's office. And so it could be small enhancements to enhance those types of trips. It could be larger enhancements to talk about the last mile. So when you take the bus somewhere and you get off the bus, how do you get to the destination that you're going to? How do people get from the bus stop on Beulah to wherever they want to go within the borough? Is really important for us. And we do it safe. So an active transportation plan is really about safety, connectivity, and convenience. And so how can we make these improvements? What improvements need to be made to make it safer, to make it more connected, and make it more convenient for the residents of the borough to get where they want to go? Ultimately, not traveling in your car and taking those short trips by walking or by cycling or by transit have numerous benefits. Obviously, fewer cars on the road, burning fewer fossil fuels if your vehicle is fossil fuel. And it's healthier for us to do those kinds of activities. And I can say now, because I don't have hardly any hair and they're all turning gray, right before the pandemic started, I was having a hard time riding my bike anymore for more than just, flat road around the neighborhood, where I used to go out and ride 20 or 30 miles. And so I bought an e-bike, and boy, that has really changed, what I can do and how far I can travel. And so with my e-bike now, I can go for long distances. I can go for 20-mile, 10-mile ride, 20-mile ride, 30-mile ride. And I can travel much further around my community. I can get to other communities and their parks and their assets. I can get to the store on my e-bike. And so that has really, and I think we're starting to see that growth because e-bikes are becoming more affordable. You don't have to spend $8,000 or $10,000 anymore. You can get them for, $1,500 these days. So they're becoming more accessible, and they're actually a low-cost transportation for a lot of people as well. And so I think we're going to see more bicycling and more e-biking in particular, because it's just making our world more accessible. And I still get health benefits out of it. I'm still working on trying to lose a few more pounds, but it does help. So thank you very much for coming out tonight. This is a great crowd. We're going to talk tonight about active transportation plan. We've talked about why we want it to happen. Our goal is to prepare a plan that will provide recommendations, that will identify implementation strategies and steps to achieve implementation of those recommendations, identify funding sources that can help pay for implementing those strategies. It doesn't happen overnight. This is like any other process where we'll identify what the priorities are, and then we'll begin to go down the list and say, okay, our first priority is X, and we will apply for funding, and if we're successful, we'll accomplish that, and then we'll go to the next step, the next priority, and so on and so forth. And one of the terms that we often use are complete streets. And I don't know how many folks are familiar with that term. Complete streets mean that we're thinking beyond the motor vehicle on the road, but we're thinking about what happens beyond the fall lines of the road, the white lines on either side of the road, what happens on the shoulders of the road, what happens on the sidewalks, what happens within the right of way of the road. And it's our hope that through this process, the borough will adopt a complete streets policy that really gets the borough to think about the complete street and how we can improve it for all modes of travel, just not for vehicles. And so we'll be working towards that as a goal as well. So I didn't number my slides. I'm not sure what slide I'm on. I'm sorry, actually. We can go to the one that has the vision. So we have a steering committee that consists of 10 or 15 people from Churchill Borough, and we're meeting with them. We had our first meeting to talk about what is the vision for active transportation in Churchill. And it's pretty simply stated, Churchill values the well-being and quality of life of its residents, and therefore provides opportunities to expand a safe and accessible network for active transportation routes for recreation to reach everyday destinations. That's kind of a working vision statement. Our committee will be taking the input that we received tonight and future public meetings, and then we'll craft that and massage it to make sure that it's on point. But that is really the vision and our primary goal for active transportation within the borough. Are there any questions about active transportation or this point? Yeah.
It does involve public transit?
Yes. 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 Now, there's only one public transit stop in Churchill Borough, and there are several just outside Churchill Borough in Wilkinsburg. We do have a representative of the Pittsburgh Regional Transit. I think they changed names, so I need to make sure I refer to the right group. But yes, Pittsburgh Regional Transit is on our committee. Now, you know, of course, we'd love to have more transit stops probably within the borough, and we can talk about that, but we also need to put the hat on of the Pittsburgh Regional Transit folks, and, you know, ridership is down. There's an expense, you know, associated with additional transit stops. And so I think we can talk about what we'd like to have, and then we need to have conversations to work with them to say, if there is demand, we would need to demonstrate demand. And if there's sufficient demand, then they might consider it. And so that's really what we'd be looking at from a public transit perspective. But we want to make sure that when you do get off a bus, that you can safely get to where you want to go within Churchill Borough. And so right off the bat, we know you get off the bus at the shelter at Beulah there, and the sidewalks really don't connect, and they don't lead you to where you need to go. And so our study committee has talked about that, how it'd be nice to make sidewalk improvements to make that route more connected and to be able to get to various places within the borough. So that leads us to, yes, our question.
And the steering committee, who is on the steering committee?
You know, I didn't bring that list with me. The Balkis are on the committee, the mayor's on the committee. She's on the committee. I'm sorry to forget your name.
Our public service director, Ralph Statland, is on the committee.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear that.
The public service director, Ralph Statland, he's also on the committee.
And are there other residents who are not residents? Okay.
Yes. Yes. So
Any of the residents will.
we made recommendations for the types of people that should serve on a study committee. And so it should be transit users, it should be walkers, it should be bikers. should be people that have, folks that, have some form of disability. I mean, we all have a disability at some point in our life. We're on crutches or in a wheelchair temporarily, but temporarily or permanent disabilities. And then we talked about having representatives from the borough side that are responsible for implementing the active transportation improvements and taking care of them. And Ralph was also a fireman. And so he sees a lot of the crashes that happen and, what kind of, can make recommendations on what kind of improvements could be made from that perspective. So, yeah.
I just want to say, Ralph had a death in the family, otherwise he had planned to be here. I think he wanted
Yeah.
to there because he'll be an integral part of all of it.
Right, right. So, but here's the fun part of meeting. This is where we're not here to say tonight that, well, we need sidewalks here and bicycle improvements over there. We're starting to do our analysis. So our analysis includes looking at the transportation infrastructure. So what are the speed limits? Anywhere from 25 to 35 to 45 to 65 on the parkway. Where are the accidents occurring on the roads? Well, they're primarily, on William Flynn Highway and on the parkway is where the bulk of the accidents are. We do have accidents on Beulah Road and some on Greensburg Pike, and fewer on Churchill Road. And so it's important to understand where those crashes are occurring and then looking to see from a pedestrian and bicyclist standpoint, whether or not there's improvements that can be made to help mitigate any safety issues in those particular locations. So that's our transportation infrastructure. Destinations and generators. This map identifies where we have churches, where we have schools, where we have doctor's offices, where we have grocery stores, medical office buildings, complexes, places that residents of the borough desire to get to. And so, again, looking at how those routes might be connected to those types of facilities that we desire to get to. And then we look at barriers to walking and bicycling. And the primary barrier, as we all know, is West Pennsylvania, is the topography. So lots of hills, lots of steep slopes. So the purple on this map indicates where we have slopes that are steeper than 15%. When you're walking or biking, a slope of 10% is a pretty good slope going uphill. When you're going downhill, gravity helps you. But going uphill, it can become a struggle and really can limit the distance that you can go. And so it's important to understand that. So when we're talking about where we can make connections and how we make connections, of identifying areas that we can do it in a reasonable manner, because we don't want to spend money and then nobody uses it because we're going up a very steep hill or steep incline. So with that, that's the analysis that we're going through. We're beginning key person interviews. The study committee has recommended that we contact a number of people within the borough to call and really to do a one-on-one interview with them to get their thoughts and perspectives on active transportation within the borough. So we're starting to learn information from them. Where are the problem areas? What would they like to see happen? What are the challenges that they see in implementing an active transportation plan? Where are people driving too fast? Everywhere. Yes. Thanks to COVID, it seemed like everybody's increased 10 miles an hour or more and haven't slowed back down. And that's what we're here to talk with you about tonight, is to get your input on, first of all, where would you like to walk or bike to that you can't get to now because you don't feel safe doing it? And so we can just, this is where
you know, people want to get to the green space. From anywhere in the borough, we want to walk to the green space, which means getting through this intersection.
Right.
And getting down to that property. Going through church property. Beulah Road down there is a dangerous place to walk.
Right. Right.
I wouldn't. I walked it several times myself. It's not safe.
Yeah. So we've, yes, so that's come up in our key person interviews, and so there's a lot of desire to connect to Churchill Valley Greenway, which is being enhanced by the Allegheny Land Trust. And so as part of that, we'll be looking at and evaluating how we can make a connection to that from the neighborhoods and from the borough, other places in the borough to get there, what kind of improvements need to be made. We spoke with representatives from the Black Ridge Civic Association, and they're very interested in providing access through their property to get into the greenway. So we're actually the consultant that is doing the planning work for the Allegheny Land Trust on the greenways plan. And so we're kind of working in both directions. We're working with ALT, who desires to have external connections into the borough, and then our work for the borough looking at coming back into it. So we'll be going out and walking with representatives of Black Ridge Civic Association to look at the routes that they have in mind and figure out how we can make them as safe and as accessible as we can, and then looking how do we get from the Black Ridge Civic Association property to other points within the borough. So yes, that's very good. Yes.
I think that this is a really high thing to try to achieve, but I would like to be able to have access to the neighboring trails like the Gap Trail and other, the Westmoreland Heritage Trail and other trails, some kind of connectivity. If not, I don't know, and I don't know what the barriers are to that, but you know, if there was some way to connect Churchill to those bike paths so that we could get on the trail here and have access to all of them.
Right.
What you can get on, if you can connect that, you can kind of, they're all starting to connect each other.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, they connect to the Gap, connect to the Westmoreland Heritage Trail. Yeah, so yes, we
Provide some information I just learned recently. Well, first of all, there were a few of us who were involved working with your organization half a dozen years ago with Monroeville, Wilkinson, Churchill. We looked at how we could do bike paths from each of those communities down into the valley. And I have seen, I think you can go on the county website, and there's a plan for how they're going to extend the Westmoreland Heritage Trail down through Pitcairn, through East Pittsburgh, Braddock, and then connecting with the passage. But it's a county effort, not an individual.
Right.
But the intent would be, if they could get that trail built, then you can start looking at access points from the various municipalities. And the one that we looked at was Greensburg Pike. That except the very bottom of the pike goes to 2 lanes, it's real narrow.
Right.
I don't know if there's widening going on Buell Road. I know cyclists, I've biked down all the way down to Turtle Creek. That bottom's really dangerous. There's really no side at all.
Right.
But what Kathy Rayborn's land, or I'm sorry, Kathy Warner is putting out is that really should be a long-term vision. It wouldn't just be for Churchill, it would be for all the communities.
Right. Yes, so we're taking the recommendations that were done in the multi-municipal comprehensive plan that we did, and we'll be advancing those through this active transportation planning process. I'm familiar with the county study of the Turtle Creek Valley Connector Trail. We actually identified that when we were doing what was called the 5 boroughs active transportation plan. So that was East Hills, Turtle Creek, Braddock, North Braddock, and heading back this direction. And so it was interesting. We walked that rail bed and that corridor that we were talking about, and kind of a light bulb went on, and we spoke with Allegheny County Community Economic Development folks, and then they brought Darla Cravata on, who was working for the county executive, and we went out and we took a tour of that, and she said, wow, this is something that we need to figure out how to make happen. So that project is advancing. Again, trail projects take time, and they take funding to have happen, but there's a lot of momentum behind that Turtle Creek Valley Connector Trail. And, if we can connect into that, boy, that opens up, a whole nother world of possibilities from, recreation and kind of tourism perspective to make those connections.
Well, going back here to Arbor, and there's, my neighbors, are members of Beulah Church. And I had the chance to work with Beulah Church in the tree committee aspect. And I thought Beulah Church was open that, if you're building a trail from the church property down through the woods, it will connect with the greenway. So in other words, the Black Ridge community has their access points, but I thought Beulah Church was also looking and actually working hard to make access.
It's already connected. Yeah.
Because if I had, if you had unlimited money, it would be nice, but you see, like, I know when I go to Boston or Chicago, a busy highway like the Parkway, you see these steps go up, and people can cross over this road and come back down. I'd love to have one going, like at the top of Holland Road, could we get over to Beulah? And then you just open the greenway to everybody.
Right.
And really, those type of access with the bridges, pedestrian bridge, we have a Duquesne, down at Duquesne.
Right.
But that would open up our whole borough then having access.
Yes.
But it would have to, Beulah Church would have to be open to allow, with people coming through the, Kathy and Ann can probably speak more.
Or you
to
go
their-
down McCready to Bull's Bend, and then through that area. down
That's
there.
another access. That would be another way if, to have both.
Right.
Having both available.
Yes.
So I'd kind of add on to the trail connection, I'd like to connect to other communities. I cycle all the time and I'm a trail cyclist and a road cyclist. But if I can get to Regent Square, like Pittsburgh has some awesome trails and road lined out that I can actually just jump on and go wherever I need to go.
Right.
So, I do ride from here to Regent Square. It's just not the safest.
Yeah.
So, when I'm over here because I live off McCready and Ridgewood, just trying to cross the street there, or even trying to go, where you can go on the Parkway or go straight towards that church, it's really not safe. So, and then trying to cross over Beulah Road right over here, just, not the greatest.
Right.
And like traffic, I feel like traffic calming measures and even some bike lanes or even signage could help
Sure.
with that
Sure.
tremendously.
Yeah, so traffic calming measures, when we talk about that, so bike lanes are great. There are several type of bicycle facilities that we will talk about. We'll talk about shared lanes where you're riding in the lane with traffic. We'll talk about bike lanes on the shoulder of the road. And then there are protected bike lanes, which there's a barrier, which is the ideal situation, makes it more comfortable for most people. And then there's a shared use path, which is really an off-road path that makes the connection what we're talking about. So we'll be evaluating those as we go through the process and where those can fit in. A lot of times, the right of way is narrow and we have a lot of constraints that we can't fit in the ultimate solution. So we have to work within what we have available to make it as safe as we can. Yeah.
Ago at the meeting you referenced, I was talking about, I live in Holland, how you can't walk to the bus stop safely. First of all, there's no sidewalks on Churchill, which is a busy road. Holland is not so busy and the speed limit's lower, but it's scary, I think, to walk on Churchill Road. And then there's the no pedestrian crossing sign where you have to cross to get to the bus stop. So
Yes.
it's definitely, it goes beyond not being pedestrian friendly, it's really pedestrian hostile.
Right.
Because how are you supposed to cross the road to get to the bus stop? And yes, I would love access to the greenway, but to do that, you have to, I think, again, have sidewalk along Churchill Road, pedestrian walkway for cross, way to get into the church, if that's the access point,
Mhm.
without having to drive a car
Right,
to get to a parking lot to go walk.
right. And that's our goal.
Yeah.
That intersection of Churchill Road and Beulah, It's ironic, as she just mentioned, all four corners have signs that say you can't cross. So there's nowhere you can go from any corner legally, well, if you did without, running afoul of the sign that says don't cross here, all four directions.
I've seen you cross. I didn't say it.
Don't turn me. Tried to access the greenway from behind Beulah, Church and was unable to find a connection. I made my way down the hillside. But it's not developed in any way to make it, convenient. If it were, and it wouldn't take much to put it into better shape, it would be a great way to get down there without having to deal with the very busy Beulah Road that goes down there, nor deal with the limited parking that's available if you were to take a car, which sort of is anti to what we're talking about.
There's two accesses, and you're right, it's not well marked because we're not expecting a lot of visitors at this point, but lots of people in the church know where it is, so come on up, I'll show you one very quick. Up by the hill, and there's another access over on the cemetery side.
I wandered around on that hillside for about 15 minutes. I could have used your help.
And
To mention that too, now, we're trying to get Phillips Pen back online, if you will. And so the borough's been down there working, the Department of Public Works have expanded the parking lot down there, make it a little bit, more parking space, easier to turn around. And actually to enter from that part of, again, you gotta drive down there. Right. But when you do get down there, access to that end of the park is pretty easy.
there were a couple more hands up there in the back row, yes.
Now that, Lewin Lane, and the intersection of Lewin Lane and Beulah is just 2 lanes, it seems to me like you do have an opportunity to use, what do you call those things, jersey? Like you do in, along Frick Park. The Fern Hollow Bridge.
Right.
That you could at least get from that intersection to, Beulah and, Churchill Road, with those barriers. Right. And if there was some way, and I don't know if there was some kind of access, like if you could go on Old Beulah, if there's some way back there that you could, like what you're talking about, that bridge.
Well, the mayor and I talked with the tree committee, cutting a path. I believe it's still our property, it's not gas. But when you walk up to Old Beulah Road at the top, instead of walking out to the road and going on the sidewalk where all the cars, is cutting a path through the trees, and actually it would be tree covered. And it would bring you up to the top of Churchill Road by the gas company.
Yeah.
We've talked
Yeah,
about.
that's something that's been on the market a lot.
Yeah.
And you had a question, yes?
I'm just speaking from someone who commutes every day. Accessing the bus is difficult. Not just, like I understand the walking. I understand my bus stop, it's at Old Gate, it seems like it's a good problem. It's right on the side of right, getting on 376, you kind of stand on the road, no shelter. There is really no sign, and you kind of gotta wade into a very busy road to wade down the bus. And so even if there was an easier way to access the bus at Beulah, or if there was a way to implement some sheltered or secure bus stops, I think that would definitely help a lot of people commute to public transportation.
Yeah.
I commute to Cleveland, and there's many people who live in Bridgeville who live there and don't think about it because they don't live there.
That's a very good point. And it was the result of the comprehensive planning process in working with Beulah Church to get the shelter at the Beulah stop. That was one of the wins of the early on in the comprehensive plan. That was a really big deal to a lot of folks in the community. And just because the Old Gate bus stop might be in Wilkinsburg, because it's on the, I think we need to look at that and be talking about that and making recommendations for how we can improve the safety of that. Because it does serve Kirkville for a resident, and so. I made note of it.
Like Rodi and.
No, it's like,
That one's terrible too. though.
it's on this road, like right as you get on 376 from like the Black Ridge side.
Oh, okay.
It's like across the street from the 376 entrance.
And that one is, by the way, there are far more than one bus stop in Churchill. You should know that. Count at least 6 in my head. But if you think the one that she's referring to is bad, try this one right across the street here, inbound on William Penn Highway.
Yeah,
Uh,
Or the one over on Montgomery for, Rodi Road and William Penn, that's terrible. Those guys are standing over the guardrail off a cliff almost. Wow.
Same, it's the same.
Thanks for help there.
I could, building on that point though, I just read an article in the Port Authority's cut way back, their ridership's so down, they're gonna cut even more routes, so I'm not sure. We may have 6 shelters, but I don't know if they're all being used, those routes may have gone away. That was a question.
Yeah, we'll go back and double check. I think we got the latest information from Pittsburgh Regional Authority or Pittsburgh Regional Transit, and I think that the Beulah stop is the only one that we've identified. We'll go back and double check, make sure we haven't missed anything, but there may be other shelters that were there previously that
Or none of them are shelters.
No,
they're like-
more, okay, yeah.
They're all just not.
The sign, yeah, the sign, yeah, I don't know, but if that's the case, those signs should be
And
there.
that's another conversation, because I talked with the, not the Port Authority, not the Regional Transport.
Mhm.
Anyway, it's not easy to get those shelters up, because we went through
Right.
that. They look at the number of ridership from that area. If it's one person, they're not interested.
Mhm.
And which is a shame.
Riders, you don't feel.
You could start modestly, you don't need a shelter, you need 2 big concrete pipes to keep the car from running. That would
And
solve a
some
lot.
striping across the road with some flashing lights, tell people,
Does not,
people are crossing.
you gotta have a physical barrier.
There's a variation of that.
The main bus stop that does have a shelter across the street here,
Mhm.
there's one way to get to it from this side,
Mhm.
and that's to cross William Penn Highway.
Mhm.
There is a traffic signal there. That's a very confusing intersection for a pedestrian. There's a traffic signal there that turns green when the southbound traffic on Beulah is proceeding, while the northbound traffic is stopped with 2 red lights.
Mhm.
That green light is only for pedestrians. It doesn't serve any vehicular traffic.
Mhm.
It would be much more efficient were that green light to say walk than be green.
Mhm.
Because as I say, it's already confusing as a pedestrian in that area. And
Sure.
If I'm not mistaken, that green light does not serve any of the cars. The cars are controlled by the red lights going on. Something to think about there.
And I think that intersection is a great access point for people thinking about food, like all the love to buy food from the Black Ridge side.
Heard that.
And more comfortable biking to free. I'll do Penn Ave, but crossing that intersection, it was really scary being a pedestrian or being on the bike.
You're not the racetrack.
Not
Using
yet.
that lane helped a little bit. But still is a problem. We're still waiting. We're going back to, should have had a radar sign up there, or not a radar, but flashing speed sign. Back in January, we're still waiting for the process to go through for us. It's sitting out here in the lobby, or in the borough office over there, the sign. It says flashing your speed. We're waiting for the state to make the approval for us to put that up. Wow. But controlling that, I'd like to see myself more striping on that right-hand lane rather, because coming down Beulah Road, I get past. Going into that, it's a white line that they passed me on that right-hand side, firing down Beulah Lane, there's 35 going past them. And I hate to say this, but you know, when I talk to the chief, it's our residents. It's our own residents that are flying down the road. Now granted, there are other people that pass it through, but when you get pulled over, it's our residents that are violating the law. You know, if someone wants to get in and pull in their driveway down there, we pull them over, it's a resident.
So the way we've dealt with this in other communities, the speed radar signs work in the immediate vicinity of the radar sign. So, you know, you go, 500 yards one direction or the other, and then get beyond that, they start like speed up. Speed humps slow people down. Because physically, I mean, they have to slow down, otherwise you get jolted pretty good. Now, in other communities that we've worked in, they've identified some priority routes. And those are the routes that the speed humps have been placed in. And so, it's a question of what are you prioritizing? Is it okay to slow down traffic? And my answer would be yes, because those roads are 25 or 35 miles an hour anyhow. You shouldn't be going 10, 15 miles. Yes.
So sort of building off of that, I live on Thornbury, and the intersection between Thornbury and Nottingham, I think, is the correct one. Homer, yeah. So they're at an offset T intersection.
Right.
And when you get people coming around the blind curve, so I almost wonder if putting stop signs on Beulah might be an approach to get people to stop there and then slow down the rest of the way down. But that is just part of that. I also wanted to mention that we had one person talk about coons. Honestly, like my first month living in Churchill, I tried to walk to the Mama's Meatball Pizzeria. Like, I live like right on the corner of Thornbury, and it's an easy theoretical walk. It is absolutely not safe to do that. And I think that, like, similarly to bike lanes, I think that blind curve is a big safety concern in general. And I think that is a potential opportunity to, like, keep things more local, keep things more, like, right now we drive up to Shop and Save to go shopping half the time because it's easier to get there than yours.
Right.
So,
One of the problems we have too, that's a state road. So as much as we would like to put a stop sign or a red light, we have to have state approval.
yeah. And-
Which doesn't mean that it's impossible.
Right.
It just is a lot more hoops to go through to have happen. And
Yeah,
it takes a lot
that was-
longer, unfortunately, but, yeah, we'll be taking a look at that. Before we go around the room, is there anybody online, hello, that has any questions or comments they want to share?
So you can unmute yourself and speak.
No? Okay, all right. So we'll start here and we'll work our way back over this room.
So I'm also a walker, and I have two
Sure.
lovely dogs that love to go for a walk. Again, I live over in Ridgewood Manor area, so, but to go for a walk, first of all, there's one street light at the top of the hill, and then there's one kind of, turning into Ridgewood. So it's really dark at night. So, of course, in the winter, when I want to walk my dogs, it's pitch black at like 5. And so, taking them out, I have to wear reflective gear. And even when I do, I will be honest with you, people still fly around that little circle there, but I have to come down McCready to actually get back to my house. And that's just really, I have to walk in the street with my 2 large dogs, which is fine. But again, people start flying up McCready, just to get home there. And there is a stop sign there at the upper Ridgewood and McCready, but it still doesn't really help much. People blow, I can see, I almost got hit a couple times, people just blow through it. So, so.
And that seems to be the common
Yeah.
denominator with all of it, is the speeding.
Yeah.
And again, everybody.
Yeah.
I'm on Thornbury, I'm by that stop sign in Henley, I stand in my driveway, no one stops for the stop sign. They don't even attempt to stop for it.
Yeah, Yeah, I know, it's crazy to me, but even just putting some more street lights around so people can see me and see my dogs more. And I know there's a lot of people in my neighborhood that like run early and they run just in the circle around there. And they, but they run and they walk the dogs, you know, in the morning before it's light out and even at night before it's light out. It's
Right.
just dangerous.
Right. Good.
So.
Yes.
Halloween, it's also really scary.
Oh, yeah.
Driving over
Very
there.
true.
I tried to avoid trick or treaters this year, driving home on Halloween. And, at that point, it was 8 o'clock, and it's pitch black out, and there's still like 20 kids walking in the middle of the road because there's no sidewalks, there's no streetlights, and all of the cars have their headlights on because they're stopped so that their kids can walk up and down. And so like, I was really scared that I was somebody, and I think that is,
Yeah, I had the same experience with going to Coons when I first moved here. I put on my backpack and walked down there, came out of the store and stood in the parking lot trying to decide if I was gonna call Uber because I was. But of an area we haven't addressed so much is, there's a number of cul-de-sacs off of Nottingham.
Mhm.
We live on Loxley, for example, and Nottingham is another area where there's a lot of speeding. And the road isn't wide enough to walk on it. So kind of as an access point from all of those, streets, Longbow, Nottingham, it's, definitely Nottingham needs some work
Mhm.
to make those areas more accessible.
And Nottingham is the road you need to take to get to the bus stop,
Yeah.
at the bottom of the hill, and you can't walk it. No, you can't walk
Yes.
I have two things. When I drive in Pittsburgh, my daughter lives in Squirrel Hill, and so many intersections are four-way stops,
Mhm.
and it slows down traffic.
Mhm.
And I listened to a radio program from where I used to live, and they have people complaining about four-way stops on this road, you know, and the residents are like, well, yeah, it took, you to slow down to stop. And so I think that's something that we should be using more here. And I also want to ask, we used to have a lot of accidents at Lewin and Beulah. Mayor, do you happen to know if since the changes were made at that intersection?
The number of accidents has gone down drastically.
Ralph told me there hasn't
Right.
been any,
Right.
yeah,
Yeah.
put that in, no accidents.
So that's an example of where, you know, for over a year, we were talking about that and we were told it's a state road, you know, and we just, somehow you work through that. And so I think our council needs to take that example and not let this state road barrier impede us from making the changes we have to make. So I'm just putting that out there. And you know me, I'll put it out there over and over and over.
We have, this is not coming from me, but we have done things on that state road that we should not have done. But we can't wait for the state to break.
Yeah.
So we just
Yeah.
went ahead and did it.
That's it.
We'll take the punishment later.
Yes, you're not gonna, I mean, you're not paying attention.
Yeah, but that was
They might
pretty
think they did, I
dramatic.
just don't remember doing it.
Yeah.
At our last committee meeting, they were telling us about that and how, yeah, there haven't been any accidents, and when there were accidents there very frequently, before those changes were made. So that was a very good improvement. Yes.
one remediation question, gently push back against or have a conversation about is like streetlights.
Mm-hmm.
I love Black Ridge and I love Churchill because it's dark.
Mm-hmm.
And I love looking at the sky and being able to be outside the city, but still so close to it, and like the beautiful view of the night sky at night.
Sure.
And so I wonder if that is a solution that you are considering, like red light, warmer tone options. Or something that like, shine directly like in my bedroom window.
So there are, they're called, it's
Down the lake.
dark sky, friendly lighting, so that the light is directed down, there's shields on, it goes where you want it to go, but doesn't go anywhere else. And so if we're talking about lighting, that's the kind of lighting we would be recommending. We don't want, lights going off everywhere to look like it's daylight out. Other thoughts, questions? Yes.
This thought came to mind from my own experience when I started working at Westinghouse in Monroeville. There were a handful of us that ran at lunchtime. And we knew different streets to run on that were safe and we weren't in any big traffic. But one of the engineers sat down, took a map of where our site was and mapped out and showed exactly, hey, if you run these routes, you'll get a 3-mile run. If you do this, you get a 4-mile run. This is 6. And we put the maps on. Instead of us having 6 people, we went to 50. Because once the information became available, people were willing, if they knew it was a safe place to go, they were now comfortable going out and joining the folks who were already there. And what's going in my mind is, well, we talk about the things about, accessing the Greenway, and there are nice walking routes in our various neighborhoods right now that some of us know about. We even know the distances of them, but they're not known to everybody else. And I know there's routes in Blackridge without even using the Greenway. There's nice walking routes in Blackridge that are under trees. Same in the Royal Oak plan. Same over on the Thornberry side. There's routes you can walk where you don't have the cars flying by you at 60 miles an hour. Right. And I think if a small team was able to put together, okay, what have people found to be the nice walking routes in the borough? Right. And make that information available with a map. And the distance, because if people know if they go for a walk, oh, I'm going to get my 5,000 steps if I take this route. You'll probably see more people out.
They have to be able to get to those.
I'm saying, no, but even people who live within the plans or have access to the plans. But just knowing that a route is there, and if they know that it's shaded, you need to have that information, which ones are in
That's
the
a really
shade.
good idea. It's like a
You don't have,
It's
not
like a lot of
everybody
apps do that today, like a shared route, like there's a lot of cycling apps that do that, like Ride with GPS.
Right.
Like here's a route that you can take and this is a safe route or whatever. But
Right.
walking routes, I like. I love it. Yeah.
Right now, the only Fall trails I think here are the Churchill Greenway. So, looked a couple of times and hasn't been recent. I think there may also be one in both ends, but
Even Rob does a really good
Yeah.
in terms of showing us where walking and bicycling is predominant within areas.
I consider thinking of 3 routes in neighborhoods where you don't have to cross any major streets, and I'm not talking the Greenway,
Yes,
and have that information available.
we will be back in touch to record all of that, so we have that.
My own experience with once the information became available to people went out, they were comfortable. doing it.
They can post it on the website.
Yeah.
Right.
Sure.
Yes,
I wonder if like Pittsburgh would be willing to, I mean, like somebody mentioned their great map. And it's not just, I mean, don't they kind of show the connection to other?
Yeah, they do, and you'd probably be just talking to them to see if they can expand it out a little further outside of like, I think they go to like Regent Square, like Wilkinsburg area, but I don't think they come out this direction.
Yeah.
But it would be kind of cool if they could do
Yeah,
something like that. I'm sure they'd be willing to entertain this.
right.
I'm actually going to like Wilkinsburg meeting tomorrow, so.
With the biking, the problem, Ruthie and I are bikers also. And we've moved, we only bike the trails. We know too many people have been hit riding on roads. In that case, and I'll be honest with you right now, I do not know a safe place to bike. Other than going in the Royal Oak plan, I can bike up and down our street, but once you get onto Buell Road or even the Pike, you're actually putting your life on the line as far as I'm concerned. So there has to be structural improvements to be made to make the biking.
You know, like Pittsburgh is also an advocate for pedestrian.
Correct.
Also.
Oh, okay, you're using that.
Correct,
yeah.
That's where you were coming from.
Yeah.
Okay.
You know, and if people wanted to bike it and put their lives in danger, they could, but, you know, their focus is all kinds of, pedestrian biking. Public connections, public transportation.
Correct.
Yeah.
and once the Turtle Creek connector is in place, then there's gonna be a more regional level map that shows how you get from Westmoreland Heritage Trail to the Gap and how we can make these local tie-ins.
Is there a timeline on that?
That's all.
That, I don't know. I do know the county is working toward that. But I'm not sure exactly what the timeframe is for that.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So one thing that, I mentioned this in the survey, but I wanna like resurface.
Sure.
Is that, I have a slight concern that, we may not see immediate changes for a lot of these things.
Mhm.
Strictly because the, stuff around here has not been developed with a walking neighborhood in mind.
Mhm.
So if we look at a lot of the restaurants that are nearby,
Mhm.
they are takeout places.
Mhm.
Which means that they don't, like Bar on Brown used to have a nice sit down area, but they're gone now. The new barbecue place is mostly takeout as far as I can tell.
Mhm.
So I wanna make sure that we're not like discouraged by that as part of this plan, because it's a chicken and egg problem in that like, I can't say if it's a good idea to prioritize building, sidewalks to get to the, whatever goes into Westinghouse, because I don't know what's going in.
Mhm.
And so like, yeah, if it's got restaurants, then yeah, like I would probably, I might walk there,
Sure.
but I might not start immediately, like, once these improvements have been made. If I would also need to wait for the surrounding infrastructure to go up.
Pop up, right,
Yeah.
right. Yeah, I mean, it all takes time. And the question, I mean, it's, first of all, it's establishing the vision. 30 years ago, transportation planners were concerned about how we get a car from point A to point B in the fastest route possible without, impediments. And it's just been the last 10, 15, maybe 20 years, but it's been the last 10 years where we're starting to have conversations and people are starting to realize that a car-centric community is probably not the best community for the residents that live in that community. And so looking at, addressing active transportation, there are lots, there's many more state and federal programs that are available to help with providing funding for these kinds of improvements in communities. So if you can get the infrastructure on the ground, and then, we're having conversations about, what is Churchill's vision for how the Westinghouse site is, redeveloped and, what should that be? What should that look like? And it would be really nice if that were some type of mixed use, walkable, bikeable, retail, commercial space that we could access. And so that's really, again, that's not part of this project, but I know that there are efforts in the borough to think about that and put things in place to really get what the borough desires to have happen there on the property. And, again, we talk about access management, how many driveways in and out do you have along a particular roadway? The more you have, the more opportunity there is for crashes there. Just because, you have the conflict of vehicles turning and other vehicles and going, and lack of sidewalks. And what if there is a driveway out, then that breaks up whatever sidewalk network up there. So looking at access management, we can reduce the number of access points along the road. And in a lot of places, that means there are internal connections between parking areas as opposed to a driveway to every individual business that, gets you. So those are all things that we'll be looking at as we move forward. Anybody online?
If you would like to speak, you can unmute yourself.
So, yeah, no, this has all been wonderful, wonderful input. And we will continue to have this dialogue with the study committee, and we'll be reaching out to some of you to talk about walking routes, to talk about the connection to the Greenway, in various locations in the borough. And I think, did you meet with, or speak with Elaine Kramer or Sarah Thompson in our office about connections to Beulah? Okay, somebody from the church, we've been speaking with somebody from the church, and I'm not sure who it is. But there are ongoing conversations about how that can be improved and how that can be marked and signed so that people can find it and you're not spending time, up and down the hillside to look for it. So that's all, I think, in the works moving forward, so. Yes.
One more logistical question. These maps look really interesting and great. Are they available somewhere for us to look at?
They're not online yet, are they? We'll put them online on the, so there's a landing page for the borough's active transportation plan. And actually, we're gonna be developing a GIS story map on there. And these will go up as part of that. And that should be in the next few weeks. I'm hoping that we'll get that component online, so. There are other thoughts, questions? So we covered where would you like to walk or bike? What keeps you from walking or biking? These are all questions I had myself. Where should things be improved? We covered that. I like the more informal than. What about connections outside of Churchill? So we've covered that. In terms of, well, what else is on your mind? Is it a good idea for Churchill to adopt a complete streets policy that says that we need to be thinking about more than just the motoring traffic on the road? We need to be thinking about pedestrians and bicycles. I think that is kind of a rhetorical question because the answer is pretty obvious. And so as part of this process, we will be drafting a policy that hopefully the borough will adopt this plan and then adopt that policy. And that'll talk about decision points in terms of how the borough should think about implementing complete streets when they're tackling a roadway improvement project. And what level of, complete street are we talking about as we go through that? So we'll be developing that draft policy. Programs, we talk about programs, and again, this is where maybe we can get the recreation committee involved in doing things. Maybe we get the police department involved. I don't know if you've had bicycle rodeos in the community. That's very common for activity for police departments. Actually, usually through the council of governments, there's like a pre-packaged setup that they can do, and you can invite the children to come to a park, come to the Greenway, wherever it might be, come to the municipal building, and go through, safe bicycling habits. A lot of the health agencies, UPMC, Allegheny Health Network, have funding available to help assist with that or provide bicycle helmets, those kinds of things. As the project develops, we will be providing resources online and recommending resources online that are for safe walking, safe biking, proper transit use, how to use a bike rack on a bus. So people understand how to do that when they want to do that or need to do that. And there are a lot of video series that are some are geared to adults, some are geared to children. And so all that information will be presented and be part of this kind of ongoing active transportation website for the borough. And so getting the word out and sharing that information is going to be terrible. Doesn't do you any good if it's on there, but nobody accesses it. So that's where the recreation committee utilizing it, the borough newsletter to make people aware of it, maybe some things through the school district to make them aware of what's happening. Even if you don't walk, other than to back and forth to your car, or you don't bike, how do you safely interact with pedestrians and cyclists? That's a really important aspect. And so getting that information out to the motoring public about what to do when, you know, you come up on a bike. Some people just kind of, well, gee, there's a bicycle in the middle of the road there. I'm not sure what I should be doing. And so educating folks on that. PennDOT has good resources, like Pittsburgh has good resources. There are a lot of other agencies out there, nonprofit groups that have that information, so we'll be sharing that. We talked about traffic calming, and again, we'll be having conversations with the police chief to talk to him about, you know, what we see and what kind of recommendations. Enforcement is, you know, that's the first thing everybody goes to is, well, why aren't we enforcing things more? It's really education is what needs to happen. And so, you know, if somebody is going 45 miles an hour down the road and it's posted for 25 miles an hour, the education is that speed radar sign that says, you know, flashing, you're going however, you know, 45, 42 miles an hour in a 25 mile an hour zone. And again, that's providing that awareness, and it's like a passive enforcement of getting people to slow down. In the neighborhoods, you know, there are things we could talk about. We could talk about, you know, mini traffic circles or things like that if there are areas that are problematic. And really identifying, you know, what are the priority routes that we need to slow traffic down on. Traffic calming always ends up being a discussion with the emergency services providers because they're used to being able to go a certain speed along the roads. But again, we want to make sure it's safe for everybody to be using. And so, you know, speed humps, they're in various areas throughout the city of Pittsburgh, and they're working fine. And they're on, not just on the side streets, but they're on some pretty significant corridors through the city. So it's working without impeding emergency services in a negative way. So, you know, we'll continue to talk about all these things as we move forward. So who has completed the survey online? Okay, if you haven't, please do so. And there are really two components of that. And I think people are missing the second component of the survey. There's the question part of the survey when you check the boxes and type in your responses. There's also a map on the very last page of the SurveyMonkey survey. There's a link that takes you to what's called a wiki map. And what that is, that's, we don't have an example of that on in the PowerPoint.
There's a link to it on one of the slides. If you want to.
Yeah, what it says up next, survey and interactive map. So the wiki map actually allows you to drag different icons. So if you have a pedestrian concern, you can drag the pedestrian icon to a specific location in the borough and then put a comment there. And then people can upvote it, downvote it, and you can put as many of those as you'd like, wherever you would like, within the borough. And so I would really like to, what's that?
Right here.
Okay, oh yeah, it's great. Yeah, so go down, click on this continue with guest on the bottom of it.
This is on Zoom now.
The screen is shared on Zoom?
Yes.
Yep, was not earlier, which is why.
So, what this will allow you to do is see, you have the various, you can click add points and comment, and then that'll bring down a menu. You can choose pedestrian concern, accessibility concern, bicycle concern, transit concern, traffic concern, or other concern or idea or thought. And that allows you then to pinpoint specific locations in the borough. So please, even if you've already done the survey, if you could visit this and put your site-specific comments in there, that would be of tremendous help as we move forward. Right now, I think we only have 3 comments on it.
And I wasn't clear on the survey, I'll be honest. Yeah, I missed that.
No, I missed it too.
Yeah. And also, I would encourage you, if you have a network of friends, family, social groups, church groups, please help get the word out that there is the survey is available online so that we can get everybody's input from as many people as we can in the community. I think right now we have about 110 responses so far to the survey. The survey will be open until the end of February, so it'll close on February 29th, March 1st. And then we'll begin to look at the results of the survey, but we would really like you to help us get the word out and share it amongst your network. So really we're reaching as many people as we can.
I'm doing the same.
I just did that today and I didn't see that link.
You know what, it's on the on the thank you for filling out the survey, please visit, and then there's a link to click to go to the wiki map. And we'll do some more Facebook blasts through on the and posting on the borough website to bring it to everybody's. We still have 2 weeks to go, so we can get that information.
You can go back in, even though you've already completed the survey.
I think you can, and you can just go to the end, last slide, and click the link on there.
You can't go through the survey again, it'll tell you you've already submitted it, but if your browser should remember this, so if you just start typing in wiki mapping, it should auto-fill to the right section.
Wiki.
You can also send out the link, like the QR code.
Yeah, if you put your email down tonight here on the sign sheet, we'll email that out to you so that you have it.
We can put it on the landing page as well.
Yes, yeah, we'll make sure that it's more visible than it is, because obviously people haven't found it yet, so.
We got it now.
In terms of next steps, we'll be having a number of steering committee meetings between now and mid-April. In mid-April, we'll come back and present a draft of the recommendations that we're talking about. In the meantime, we'll have steering committee meeting groups. We'll be having more keepers interviews. We'll be reaching out to some people here in the room to get more information about things that you brought up tonight. And then in mid-April, we'll come back with what we're recommending. We'll use the steering committee as our first sounding board, but then have a public meeting that will be the second sounding board to say, yes, these are good ideas, but you've missed these 3 things, or this is great, but maybe we're going too far, like the lights are going to be too bright, those kinds of things. We need all of that type of input, because this is really the borough's plan at the end of the day. And what's right for the borough is really what's right and best for the residents. And so we can provide professional expertise and guidance, but at the end of the day, we need to decide, yes, this is, what we want to do for Churchill Borough, the residents of Churchill Borough. So, and again, if you sign in, we'll make sure you're aware of when the meetings are coming up, and we'll go from there.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much for coming. Sarah was back there with her laptop taking notes feverishly, so I was jotting down some notes too, but she does a much better job of it. So we'll put together meeting minutes, and we hope to see you again soon.